Beth will be along in just a moment.
Beth's bartending.
Beth is bartending. But we just got back from doing one of our haunted dinner events at Patrick Henry Pub, which was a lot of fun. As always, did it as a private event for Wounded Warrior Project. So, they were a great group. Glad we could host them tonight and share some spooky stories with them over some amazing food at Patrick Henry's. So, did that, and just rolled back in the door here maybe 20 minutes ago. Hence, I'm still in work gear here.
And I'm still bartending.
And I'm still trying to get ourselves together so that we can actually do the show tonight. Novel concept, right? But, so very busy. It's mid-October. Of course it's busy for us. About this time yesterday, we just rolled back into town from upstate New York. We had a little brief excursion getaway up there. So that was a nice couple of days, nice chilly couple of days. But a little bit of work, a little bit of play. But before that, the last weekend was Nightmare Weekend at the Convention Center, which was a lot of fun for something that is called Nightmare Weekend. So we had a lot of fun with that. I know that we got to see some of you all there, and if you came to see us, fantastic. And if not, we are already signed up to be back to do our vendor booth next year, and panels, we'll figure that out later. We are also going to be doing GalaxyCon at the end of March as well, so you can come see us there at our vendor booth that we're going to have there, and panels to be determined. Richmond Comic-Con, we're going to be doing that next month up at the Raceway Complex. So lots of stuff going on, and of course we still have the rest of October to get to as well, including lots of tours.
Tell me now.
No. Why? We're having fun. You're just tired.
I am tired. I am very tired.
You don't want anybody killing you. You just want
to... Okay, can I be rendered unconscious for several hours?
Yes. Let's be clear here.
But hey, guess what I found at the grocery store today? Homestead Creamery eggnog.
So
eggnog.
It feels weird diving into it in October, but hey,
I saw it and I grabbed it.
It's not. We will take it. So we're doing. We're killing the last of our Hardywood Christmas morning from last year. So
yeah, and he is. I'm doing maple whiskey in my nog. Hello, sir. Are you showing off for everybody?
And we got Patrick and Alex. Happy October, Alex. And yes, we did get to see Patrick at Nightmare Weekend.
Yes, we did.
Yes, and eggnog is good any time of the year.
It is, which is why I snagged 2 liters of it.
If they would make it. Yeah. Oh, and yesterday was Patrick's birthday.
Happy birthday!
Happy belated birthday. But so.
I'm sorry. Would you like my legs out so you can have a lap? That'll put me to sleep, buddy.
So what do we got going on for the rest of the month? Oh, so this next weekend, actually not weekend,
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday,
we are going to be helping out with the Ghosts Walk at Night event up at Hanover Tavern.
Yep, so myself, Chris, and our guide Zoe will be up there.
And Tiffany.
So myself and Tiffany are actors, Zoe and Chris are guides through the event, and then our wonderful other guides are taking care of tours here in
Spill?
No.
Miraculously?
Miraculously, she hit the water and it didn't fall over.
That was almost disastrous.
That would have been nog all over the floor and glass.
That would have been a crime.
Okay, let's...
Hold on to the nog. Anyways, so...
Save the nog.
So we got that going on. We got our regular walking tours that are going on just about every night. I think there's maybe...
Tuesday is the only night we don't have anything going on because... We're booked out.
So, but yeah, every other night through Halloween, we got public tours going on. And also, you can come join us on
Segway.
Segway, yes.
First Segway.
Our first
public Segway.
First public ghost Segway tour is going to be this Saturday at 4 o'clock, led by yours truly. So you can come join me on a Segway and wheel around town and get some ghost stories from all across Richmond.
Yes.
And ride a Segway, which is ridiculously fun if you've never done it before.
Says him. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, but my feet did not. So it's a lot of foot movement. So if you have feet problems, just be worried.
So, anyways, so yeah, we are here tonight.
And we're rambling.
We're only 5 minutes in, but yeah, we got a lot to talk about because Scotland. We are going to talk about haunted Scotland, which is very apropos if you ask me, because I mean the Scots and the Irish, they really know how to celebrate the season.
Yeah, and I mean we have covered some of Scotland before in various themes, like when we did tunnels and other things.
Oh yeah, we have talked about Scotland many times before.
Yes, but this is solely Scotland.
Yeah, I mean the one of the haunted distilleries almost wound up being a haunted Scotland.
Yes.
We had to throw in something from Kentucky just to make sure it wasn't all Scotland. But anyways.
They have distilleries, and they're all haunted. What can I say?
Yeah,
Pop girl.
Yeah. So haunted Scotland's tonight, and our first stop is actually one that you're going to be familiar with if you regularly watch the show, because this is we just talked about this particular location in Scotland a couple episodes ago. Yeah, Haunted Universities, the International Universities episode. We're returning to St. Andrews on the east coast of Scotland.
The entire town is haunted.
Yeah, so just a little ways north of Edinburgh, and this time we're going to be talking about some of the spooky locations surrounding the historic campus. So St. Andrews is the name of the university and also the name of the town that the university is in. So
isn't it also where golf was found?
Yeah. Geez, I don't know if that's where golf was invented, but golf is very popular there. Because we are going to start with the town's famous golf course. So St. Andrews' links to the game of golf are legendary, and those legends go beyond the many famous golfers that have wandered the carefully manicured course. It has been reported that a phantom golfer haunts the bunkers and fairways at St. Andrews' old course, and that he tends to be helpful in his own way. Tales have been told that this ghostly figure helps golfers locate and retrieve their stray balls from the rough. He's even been seen playing a shot or two before vanishing into thin air. The ghost is understood to be a manifestation of 19th century golfer young Tom Morris, who from the age of just 17 won the Open Championship an incredible 4 times in a row. Young Tom Morris suffered a tragic end. In 1875, he was returning home from a golfing trip to discover his wife and baby had died in labor. Devastated, the golf legend was found dead just 4 months later, having suffered a heart attack at the age of 24 years old. So, on that lowly note to kick things off,
Kitty cat.
We got 3 cats. And Lulu's not too far. She's around somewhere.
Yeah, she's hanging around somewhere. The cats have missed lap time.
We have not granted them much lap time recently. But anyways, so yes, not the only spirit that we have to talk about is St. Andrews. Like young Tom Morris, many of St. Andrews' ghosts fall on the friendly side of the spectrum, including the St. Rule's monk, who appears from time to time on its ancient stairs. In 1393, the priory of the monastery of St. Andrews was of the monastery at St. Andrews was Robert de Montrose. He's reputed to have been a good man, fair and reasonable, with a generous heart. Occasionally, however, he needed to discipline 1 or 2 of the more rebellious monks in his care. One of these, by the name of Thomas Platter, didn't take kindly to being reprimanded and planned his revenge. He crept up on the prior late one evening as he was retiring to bed and stabbed him to death. Fast forward to the 1940s, when a visitor to St. Andrews was climbing St. Rule's Tower to take in the view. It was daytime, but the inside of the tower was poorly lit. He stumbled in the dark and looked up to see the partly shaded figure of a man wearing a cassock, standing a few steps above him. The monk-like figure spoke kindly and offered his arm in assistance, but the visitor politely declined and continued up the stairs. It was only when he came down again and spoke to the tower's custodian that the visitor realized what he might have seen. The custodian told him that he had admitted no one else into the tower and had seen no one emerge from it. More recently, photos taken by guests on a ghost tour appeared to show a shadowy figure in the topmost window of the tower. Moving along, the cathedral grounds are enclosed by a high stone wall with a number of small 2-story watchtowers set into it at intervals. In the 15th century, these were joined by a parapet walkway. After the Reformation and the subsequent abandonment of the cathedral, one of the towers seems to have been used as a family mausoleum, with burials taking place in the lower chamber. Some years later, it was sealed off and forgotten. In the graveyard around the tower and on the parapet walk above, the apparition of a white lady has been seen by several witnesses.
Always a white lady.
Yeah. On one occasion, she passed through an iron gate, scaring a group of fishermen on their way up from the harbor. Some sightings date back to the 1800s, while others are much more recent. In fact, she has been seen so often that some people stay clear of the area after dark, and the tower has become known as the Haunted Tower. To some, she appears to be holding a book and wearing a long white dress and a veil. Others report that she has long black hair and is very beautiful. In the 1860s, stonemasons working on the wall came back with claims that they could see into a sealed crypt through cracks in the stonework, and they told some hair-raising stories about mummified bodies. The crypt was opened, and a number of bodies were found in a surprisingly good state of preservation. Among them was the body of a young woman with black hair. According to reports, she was wearing a long gray dress and white leather gloves.
Speaking of which, did you hear they found a secret tomb underneath where they filmed Indiana Jones at Petra?
Yeah, yep, they found
that. Was really cool.
Like a dozen
bodies.
Dozen burials were in there. Yeah.
I really need to watch that exposition and because that's who was part of that. Anyway, I digress because in that scene there was a ageless man.
Yes.
Immortal as long as he didn't leave the room.
The Knight Templar.
Yeah. I am digressing, aren't I?
You're being judged.
Oh, no, I'm being judged because I stopped stretching. I'm sorry, I have to read. I need my fingers. Y'all should see this look I'm getting.
It is quite the look.
I am like 6 feet under and sinking because I stopped. Chris is going to try to get a picture of it. It's like, are you taking my picture, Daddy? All right, so now we're going to go to a location Chris and I actually have been to, and some of you might find it familiar if you are a Shakespeare fan. So we're moving from the Old Kingdom of Fife over to the Highlands, where the legendary Cawdor Castle is located. Of course, this was immortalized by Shakespeare in his play Macbeth. Cawdor dates back to the late 14th century and has been the home of the Thanes and later the Earls and Countesses of Cawdor ever since. It is said to be haunted by the apparition of an heiress once kidnapped by one of the most powerful families in all of Scotland. The original occupiers of Cawdor Castle were the Cawdors, and the head of that clan holding the title of Thane. William, 7th Thane of Cawdor, substantially increased the Cawdor family influence by marrying Margaret Sutherland of Dunbeth Castle. He expanded his lands through a series of purchases and by marrying again after Margaret died. He received a charter from the king which joined all of his hereditary lands and his newly acquired holdings into one larger superthanage.
Superthanage.
Does he have a cape? Just wondering. He also received a permanent hereditary sheriffship and the keeper of the king's castle at Narn for himself and his heirs. Thane William was constantly at odds with his neighbor Hugh Rose of Kilvarach Castle. Things came to a head when he incarcerated Kilvarach's son in the dungeon at Cawdor Castle. Kilvarach appealed to his wife's kinsman, the Earl of Hundley, who was the king's lieutenant. A royal warrant was issued demanding the release of young Kilvarach. However, this was not the only brush with the law. Thane William and his son William and several retainers were charged with the slaughter at Inverness of Patrick Wiseman, Duncan McAngus, William Blacklaw, and John Red, reportedly over the theft of William's cattle. He was pardoned by the king. Later, he was tried and found guilty in the Circuit Court of Aberdeen and was sentenced to be beheaded. Once more, James IV intervened and pardoned him. William resigned his estates at Cawdor in favor of his second son, John. William the Elder was lame and so was given a pension and became the Vicar of Bevern. Thane William was keen to repair the feud of the Roses with Cawdor, and thus arranged for his son and heir, John, to marry Isabella Rose of Cawdor. Alas, tragedy was to strike the family, and John VIII, Thane, died young in 1498, leaving a widow carrying his child. His heiress was thrust into a world vulnerable and at the mercy of the power-hungry lords who realized whomever had control of this infant girl controlled the title, wealth, and lands of the Thane of Cawdor. The old Thane William and his sons were furious, but there was little they could do. The newly signed tenure that William had brokered with the king made the child a ward of the crown. In 1502, Muriel's rights as heiress was made law, and Thane William died the following year. The young child left Cawdor Castle and went to live with her maternal grandparents at Kilbarrack Castle. Kilbarrack intended to marry the child to his own grandson, her first cousin. However, Archibald Campbell, the second Earl of Argyll, heard of Kilbarrack's plan and plotted to get his hands on the Cawdor fortune. The Campbells were the richest and most powerful of the Highland clans, and clans joined ranks of Robert the Bruce's army in the Scottish War for Independence. Neil Campbell wed Robert's sister, Mary Bruce. In aftermath of Robert's victory, Clan Campbell was elevated to become one of the most influential in Scotland. The Campbells, opportunists and power brokers, were not content to be married into the king's family when they plotted to make the Cawdor child Muriel a pawn in their expanding empire. Taking advantage of the role of the Justiciar of Scotland, Archibald Campbell soon found an opportunity to gain control over the child's assets, degrading Kilbarrack's position and being granted dual wardship over Muriel. Upon being granted wardship, Archibald sent an expedition of clansmen to abduct the infant and hoist her away to Campbell's stronghold at Inverny Castle, under the pretense of educating her. Lady Kilbarrack had her suspicions about the motivation, and she thrust the key to her coffer in the fire and branded poor Muriel on the thigh with it, so she would be identifiable. The Campbells did not get far when they were overtaken by Muriel's Cawdor uncles and their following, but he devised a plan. Muriel was sent away through the hills under a small guard. Meanwhile, he had a stock of corn dressed in her clothing and placed the child in the arms of a retainer, strategically positioned to be seen by the enemy. Battle commenced in the tremendous cost to the Campbells, but the child was well on her way to Campbell territory. Then in 1510, at the age of 12, Muriel was married to Archibald Campbell's younger son, Sir John Campbell. Muriel lived with her husband in Argyll for the early years of her marriage. However, in 1523, the couple fled north after her husband was implicated in murder. They arrived at Cawdor, but the history did not make it easy for family relations, and Muriel's uncles were determined that there would be no Campbell to take over at Cawdor. They promptly besieged the castle, but it was futile to stand up to the Campbell knight, and the siege ended with the two uncles that were killed. In typical Campbell fashion, Sir John went on to consolidate his hold on the area, and Cawdor had been a Campbell stronghold ever since. And there are those who say that Muriel has never left the castle. A ghost wearing a blue velvet dress has been sighted in the castle by various witnesses, according to the local legend, and it is none other than Muriel. A small wonder, considering the traumatic start to her life and blood that was spilled, as the power-hungry tried to get their hands on her inheritance. The lady in blue velvet frequents the drawing room and gazes longingly at a portrait of the first Baron of Cawdor, but she is not alone. John Campbell, the first Lord of Cawdor, has also been seen. He was born in 1755 and became a member of Parliament representing the county of Nairn. The third part of Cawdor Castle's ghost is much more tragic. She is the daughter of one of the Thanes of Cawdor who had fallen in love with the wrong boy. Her father was determined that she would marry for the good of the family. However, she kept sneaking out until one day she was caught in the act. The girl was dragged up to her bedroom in one of Cawdor's towers and locked there until she saw sense. When her father opened the door to see if any of the lessons had been learned, he found his daughter trying to climb out the window. In a fit of rage, he pulled out his sword and chopped off both of his own daughter's hands. Certainly enough trauma to explain her tragic return to the castle. Do we have any questions?
No. Royal family plot schemes to preserve the...
Game of Thrones.
Usually tends to be convoluted, which makes it that much more interesting, yes. But no
Northern
questions.
style. Okay.
Yes, very. I mean,
I had fun writing this one because I actually do have a familial tie to the Campbells. So.
yeah. I mean, Game of Thrones got their,
inspiration from a lot
somewhere.
of this.
Yes. Not unheard of.
Somebody happy and finally settled down.
We'll see. See what.
Content. This one's happy.
All right, so on we go to. This is an interesting one. So, Sir Walter Scott, in his Letters of Demonology and Witchcraft, mentions the curious case of Sergeant Alfred Davis, whose ghostly appearance to 3 Highlanders led to their appearance as witnesses in the trial of the 2 men accused of Sergeant Davis's murder. It's rather a peculiar incident in Scottish criminal history. Quote, upon the 10th of June, 1754, Duncan Terrig, alias Clark, and Alexander Ban MacDonald, 2 Highlanders, were tried before the Court of Justiciary, Edinburgh, for the murder of Arthur Davis, sergeant in Guy's regiment, on the 28th of September, 1749. The accident happened not long after the Civil War, the embers of which were still reeking, so there existed too many reasons on account of which an English soldier, straggling far from assistance, might be privately cut off by the inhabitants of these wilds. It appears that Sergeant Davis was missing for years without any certainty as to his fate. In the atmosphere of immediate post-Culloden Scotland, martial law had been declared in the Highlands and Gaelic culture suppressed. English regiments were sent north to enforce the new regime. Sergeant Davies was amongst these troops in charge of a small group of 8 soldiers at a farm called Dumbrook in Aberdeenshire. They would regularly patrol the area, communicating with other similar groups of soldiers. Sergeant Davis was a flamboyant character. He made a great show of the money he carried about in a green velvet purse, and he wore 2 gold rings, 2 silver buckles on his shoes, and carried a large silver watch. Sergeant Davis was also a keen hunter and would often go off in search of game. Early in the morning of September 28, 1749, the flamboyant sergeant and 4 soldiers set out from Dumbrook to rendezvous with another group of soldiers at Glenshee. At one point, the sergeant apparently was in the mood for a hunt and left his men to try and bag some game, planning on rejoining them later on the way to Glenshee. The 4 soldiers made the rendezvous and returned home without meeting their sergeant. Later, he did appear at Glenshee and was rebuked by the leader of the other group for going off alone. Sergeant Davis scoffed, saying that thanks to his weapons, he wasn't scared of anyone. He then headed back in the direction of Dumbrook, but wasn't seen again. A search was made, but the sergeant wasn't found and was presumed murdered. Meanwhile, a nude ghost began to appear in the isolated glen and would disappear when approached. In June of 1750, Donald Farquharson of Glendee, who had known Sergeant Davis in life, was visited by the man named Alexander McPherson. He claimed that he had been haunted by the ghost of Sergeant Davis. The ghost first came to McPherson wearing a blue coat and identified himself as the sergeant. The apparition later returned naked and instructed McPherson to see Donald Farquharson, and it would show them where its body was, begging for its bones to be buried. Alexander McPherson's employer, Mistress Isabel McHardy, also saw the ghost's naked form enter their hut. Though skeptical, Farquharson accompanied McPherson and went into a local landmark, the Hill of Christie, where they found decayed human remains with a blue coat and other clothing, but no valuables. They buried the body on the spot where it lay. Local rumors began doing the rounds regarding the involvement of Duncan Terrig. Terrig was known to be impoverished, but had apparently been prolific with his money of late. His new wife also wore a ring that looked like one of those worn by the missing Sergeant Davis. Eventually, Terrig was arrested along with one Alexander MacDonald. They had been arrested for wearing tartan, but were found to have Sergeant Davis's rings and some silver buttons he was known to wear. They were charged with his murder and taken to Edinburgh to stand trial at the High Court of the Justiciary on June 10, 1754. Several witnesses testified as to the suspicious behavior of the men following Sergeant Davis's disappearance, including their being witnessed with his possessions. They had also been seen in the area where the sergeant had disappeared at around the same time. It looked quite bad for Terrig and MacDonald. Then Donald Farquharson, Alexander McPherson, and Mistress McCarty were brought to the witness stand and told their story. Sir Walter Scott takes up what happened next. The story of the apparition threw an air of ridicule on the whole evidence for the prosecution. It was followed up by the counsel for the prisoners asking in the cross-examination of McPherson, what language did the ghost speak in? The witness, who was himself ignorant of English, replied, as good Gaelic as I ever heard in Lochaber. Pretty well for the ghost of an English sergeant, answered the counsel. As it turned out, Sergeant Davis was indeed lacking in Gaelic. Duncan Terrig and Alexander MacDonald were found not guilty. As for the ghost of the unfortunate Sergeant Davis, its blue-coated form is still said to wander the hills around Glenshee, asking for a Christian burial.
We have a grumpy boy.
I know. What the heck was that for, sir?
Grumpy boy. All right, so of course we're not going to talk about haunted Scotland without talking about Edinburgh, and we decided this is the best place to bring in the pubs, because there's a lot of them in Edinburgh that are haunted. So here's your haunted pub crawl for the night. First one, we're going to stop at the Banshee Labyrinth. I've got to say, I really do enjoy the names that they call their pubs.
Yes.
In Scotland.
They got great names.
Yes, they do. So the Banshee's Labyrinth's claim to fame is Scotland's most haunted pub. Half the club was once part of the infamous underground vaults and a lair of criminals, thieves, and outcasts. It was in these former slums that many of the poor and innocent people met their tragic ends. Ironically, next door, the front of the club was once the home to the richest and most reviled man in Edinburgh, Lord Nichol Edwards. Not only did he horribly abuse his wife, but he has also said that he had a basement dungeon beneath his house in which at times he personally tortured suspected witches before trial. He's a real winner. Living in the time of King James in the 1500s, legend has it that the evil Lord Nichol was a strong believer in witchcraft, and he used to bring women that he suspected of being witches back to his home to torture them. The disgruntled ghosts of some of those women are still saying to have stuck around, including the Banshee, from whom the labyrinth took its name. One workman had a bone-chilling experience with the Banshee when the pub was being renovated. The story goes that he saw a woman in a gray dress sobbing into her hands, who lifted her head to reveal a pale, gaunt face with rotted teeth and no eyes. She gave her signature scream, and moments later the man received a call to say a family member had passed away. Very much on par with the Banshee. The Banshee's not the only ghost to stay said to wander the labyrinth. Famous tales include that of Molly, a 6-year-old girl who disappeared in 1814 and has been said to haunt the pub since the child's shoe with Molly written on it was discovered in one of its bricked-up old chimneys. Now, I will say this actually is a custom that took place in many, many ancient cultures. Some of it is meant to be protection for the children who lived in the building, or it was meant to be a way to bring fertility into the building as an ancient ritual. But the fact that it had a name written on it is creepy. Just saying.
Dun, dun, dun.
There's also a pesky ghost of old Jock, who is believed to frequent the ladies' toilet, slamming the doors and turning the hand dryer on and off. Legend also tells of the Watcher, an apparition in the long black coat. Those who have seen him say he has no face from under the brim of his hat. Despite, or perhaps because of its grim history and spooky reputation, the Banshee's Labyrinth is famous today as an entertainment venue, and it is a hotspot, of course, for tourists. Should you choose to brave this infamous watering hole, you'll be greeted with great drinks, a cozy corner to settle into, and wherever you choose to kick back, remember to be very careful. Many have placed their drink down simply to watch it slide straight off the table and smash against the wall with an unseen force.
That's unfortunate.
Yes, it is. Our next stop is the Mitre. And this is in 1615. The site of the Mitre was occupied by a fine tenement that was owned by John Spotswood. He was the Bishop of St. Andrews at the time. The tenement burned down in 1814 and was replaced by the Mitre Bar, a nod to the bishop's headgear. Later, it is said that the bishop's throne is buried underneath what is now the bar area, and some say that his spirit still walks the bar. Bishop Spotswood lingers at the Mitre and seems to hate electricity and music. Oh boy.
He never said anything about him being...
I mean, he's not a modern man by any means. The spirit has been blamed for electrocuting several electricians that have worked on the wiring throughout the years, despite the building's electricity being shut off before the work is done. You don't get to go work in that building. In addition to the electrocutions, the jukebox is often targeted by the angry spirit, and if the music is not on par with the bishop's taste, he abruptly cuts it off. I wonder how many jukeboxes they've gone through.
Yeah, that seems like an expensive...
I'm just saying, if he messes with the electricity, he's probably shorted it out several times.
Yeah.
Okay, the last drop.
Mennonite.
It's not our last pub, by the way. But this is the Last Drop Tavern, and it's a favorite for dark history lovers, as it's located right next to the location of the gallows in Edinburgh's Grassmarket. The pub is named for the last hanging that took place in Grassmarket. The site where the Last Drop Tavern sits was once a large group of tenement buildings for the very poor. The buildings offered a front row seat to the hangings at the gallows, and the pub was rebuilt using the original stone from the tenements. The hauntings at the Last Drop are said to be of former tenants that lived in the building rather than those that were actually hanged at the gallows. The spirit that is spotted most often is that of a little girl who will whisper names of the staff working at the bar. She also likes to play pranks on both staff and the guests, so just beware. Ghost child.
All right, no.
Stop doing that. We are a family show here, sir. Don't give me that look. No, you
leave your sissy alone. Like, I don't want it.
I want her spot. All right. The Toll Booth Tavern. This is one I really want to go to. This building is home to the Toll Booth Tavern, and it's steeped in gruesome history. It's built in 1591 and has served as a prison, a police headquarters, and the Canongate Toll Booth. It was used to collect tolls from travelers entering the city. The tavern now sits alongside the People's Story Museum, which is a display showcasing what a cell in the former prison looked like. Between 1661 and 1688, Oliver Cromwell's guard detained several Covenanters in the toll booth cells, where some of them actually became ill and died. The presence of their spirits is still said to be regularly felt within the Toll Booth Tavern. And then there's the tavern's ties to exorcism and a suspected warlock. The poor man was exorcised by the Justice Clerk for Edinburgh, Sir Lewis of Benlenden. The exorcism was said to be so terrifying that the warlock died of fright, which some would say means that the exorcism worked. His spirit is said to roam the building, terrifying patrons, knocking over drinks, tearing paintings down from the wall, and other mischievous things.
A bit of a troublemaker.
Yes. I have a pouting cat.
So, Skaill?
Skaill.
Okay, make sure that
we're going to go with Skaill.
We're going to go with Skaill.
If we mispronounce it, we apologize.
Yeah, it's it looks like it's
unless it's Skaill.
It's spelled Skaill.
I'm going to go with Skaill. We're going to go with
Skaill.
Norse.
Even though, well, Skaill, which is Norse, basically the Norse version of Cheers,
Yep.
is spelled Skall. I forget what it's the A with a little circle above it.
Yeah.
The accent above it. So I don't know if that makes it effectively the same pronunciation or what, but we're going with Skaill on this. So, moving on.
It's fun to say.
Yeah, Skaill. Moving on from Edinburgh's haunted pub crawl, we'll head to the far-flung Orkney Islands. Here, Skaill House is a historic manor house which is located on mainland, the largest of the Orkney Islands. Robert Stewart, Earl of Orkney, owned the estate where Skaill House was later built. When his notorious son, Patrick Stewart, 2nd Earl of Orkney, was tried and executed for treason in 1615, the lands were given to Bishop George Graham. He constructed a simple manor in 1620 on the estate which was the first part of what is now known as Skaill House. The name Skaill derives from the Old Norse word for hall, as a result of the lingering Viking heritage that can still be found across the region. Bishop Graham was a friendly and generous man, but he was also tended to turn a blind eye to witchcraft, adultery, and even incest. So the bishop was ushered out in 1638. After him, several lairds lived in the manor. Over the years, the building expanded. When the 12th laird inherited the manor in 1991, very recently, he decided to renovate the house and open it to the public. As he proceeded with renovations, he made an unsettling discovery in the south wing where he stumbled upon human remains. After the first shock, more of the area was excavated and at least 15 more skeletons were found. Radiocarbon dating showed these bones were most likely Pictish. Pictish people were a confederation of Celtic-speaking people who lived during the late British Iron Age and early medieval period. So the south wing of Skaill House was built upon a pre-Viking burial ground. Because the bones had been there so long, they were carefully put back where they were found.
Smart.
Yep. Despite having disturbed the ancient burial, the spirits of Skaill House are believed to be from more recent history. When Major McCrae was Laird of Skaill, he had a faithful dog that clearly did not like being in the house. One day, while McCrae and his dog were in the house, the Major heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps in the hall. Before he could call out, his dog went mad. The dog began scratching and whining at the door, as if he was trying to get at whoever this mysterious person was. Suddenly, the dog seemed to lose its nerve and darted under the bed. McCrae threw the door open, fully expecting to find an intruder. What he found was nothing. No intruder or even anyone he knew. The hall outside the door was empty and silent as a tomb. When the incident played out again, a relative of the Major said the unseen person could only be Ubi, a ghost who haunts the house. When asked, the relative explained that Ubi was a man who, for whatever reason, wanted to build an island in a nearby loch. Yes, he wanted to build an island in the loch. I said that right. So, anyways.
Hey, whatever.
Yeah. While lugging stones into the loch, Ubi dropped dead from exhaustion and chose Skaill House as the place he wanted to spend his eternity. The Major's pooch wasn't the only dog to be terrified of Ubi. Every canine to pass through Skaill House has reacted as Major McCrae's dog has. In addition to Ubi, there is the ghostly resident in the main house that many visitors and members of the staff have seen, known as Tall Man. This entity has dark hair which is going thin on the top and has reportedly even spoken to a visitor. The visitor saw the man standing in the gun room and assumed he was a staff member, so he asked him a question about the house. Later, she found out that there were no male staff members working that day. One worker reported seeing a reflection of a man inside the shop, but when she went through to investigate, there was nobody there. As well as this, there had been multiple cases of guests reporting strange sounds, such as the sudden opening and closing of doors. One day, McCrae and a member of staff both smelled a strong odor of cigarettes. However, they could not find the source of the smell, even after a thorough search of the house. While his identity remains a mystery, The tall man has become an accepted part of Skaill House's historic fabric. Other spirits seem to linger about as well. One visitor claims to have felt a person sitting on the corner of his bed. He nearly dozed off, but the sensation made him jump out of the bed. Almost as quickly as the ghost appeared, it disappeared again. There was no one at the house at that time. In a separate incident, one early summer morning, the cleaners were outside in the courtyard when one of them looked up at the house and saw a woman standing inside one of the apartments. She was wearing a shawl over her head. He didn't think anything of it then, but when he learned all the guests had checked out early that morning and no one was present at the time, he knew he had seen a ghost. Skaill House continues to be home to many paranormal occurrences, but none of the spirits seem to mean anyone harm. Rather, they are just comfortably residing in a beautiful place that they have decided to make their forever home.
Oh, excuse me. Oh. Sorry, my allergy meds just wore off. It's late season attack.
Ooh. Alex, favorite place in Scotland that's off the beaten path? Isle of Skye.
Yeah, definitely Isle of Skye. We definitely need to get back. When we were there was a hurricane that came over from the U.S. We met her there. And so we had a lot of pretty waterfalls that are not normally there, but it was pouring the entire time we were there.
Yeah. So, the Isle of Skye, absolutely stunning. On the,
I do want to get up to the hybrids.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
We haven't been there yet, but
the hybrids and Orkney.
Yeah, Orkney. Because if y'all have heard of Giant's Causeway in Ireland, the other side of it is in Scotland. So they do have the same basalt columns over there, and it's said to be one of, is it Finn's? I can't remember the giant. I think it's Finn, is where his cave is supposed to be. And I really want to get up there and see that.
Yeah. But yeah, the largest town on the Isle of Skye is Portree.
Which is beautiful, very photogenic.
Yeah, very beautiful, photogenic town. Cozy enough, I think probably, maybe a few hundred people living around Portree.
Yeah. But Island Donis Castle, which is one of the most photographed castles, is on that.
It's on the way to the Isle of Skye.
Yeah, like it's right before the bridge.
Right before the bridge to go over there. What was the name of the castle on the Isle of Skye that we visited? I'm blanking.
I'm so lucky.
I'd have to. Dunraven?
Dunraven.
So, yes. And that was on the west coast of the Isle of Skye.
Yes.
And they do have, there's a couple of fantastic restaurants out there, like world class, the Three Chimneys. Which we didn't make it to that one, but we made it to the other one, the schoolhouse or something like that.
Which was phenomenal.
Absolutely amazing. And it's all off the beaten path.
Yeah. We're talking like one lane dirt roads.
Yep. So we were there. It was August. Yeah. We were there in August.
I'm sorry, baby.
Yeah. So it was probably about as busy as it'll ever get.
Yeah.
Although, again, as you mentioned, there was the hurricane at the same time. So.
Yeah, and what was the distillery we went to?
Talisker.
Talisker is there, which is phenomenal as well.
Amazing, and that's also on the west coast of the island. Which, that was the one busy place we came across.
Yeah, because it was raining, everybody was there.
Yeah. So, anyways, but yeah,
definitely do that. As I said, going up to Cawdor Castle, that is absolutely gorgeous, but that's in Inverness.
Mm-hmm.
Stirling is amazing. It's right outside the battlefield there.
Not too far from Edinburgh.
Yeah. We enjoyed all of those.
Stirling also has the Wallace Monument.
Yes. And the battlefield there.
Yeah.
So we did not make it actually up to go on the Wallace Monument. We just drove by it.
Yeah. But we did.
We only had one night there.
We only had 1 week in Scotland, which nowhere near enough time.
No, it's not.
We did a lot of driving, but we went to Port on Loch Ness.
Yes.
Urquhart Castle.
Urquhart Castle. We were at.
Shoot, I'm blanking. Fort Augustus.
Yes.
Fort Augustus there at the south end of Loch Ness.
Yes, which is a really cool little town, and literally it's right where the canal system flows into Loch Ness.
Yeah, so all kinds of amazing stuff to see there. You could go and spend just weeks and weeks and weeks there, but...
Let me win the Powerball of hands.
Alex says, does the entire staff at Haunts of Richmond sleep for the entire first week of November?
Just about, yes.
Yeah.
I literally cannot wait to fall face first into my bed and not have to get up.
But, yeah, we will get some rest in November. But we do have a couple of things lined up in November.
Yes.
Our tours will keep rolling.
We'll cut back.
Our fixed calendar will be cut back to Fridays and Saturdays, but we will still have availability for the choose your own tours throughout the week. We got stuff going on. And it'll also be time for us to start making plans for indoor stuff, winter events. So keep your eye out for that as that comes up.
Sir, do not make me come over there.
Oh yes, and Patrick, never been to Scotland, but feel like you have to say hi to Nessie.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. The entire time we were around Loch Ness, eyes were peeled, looking for Nessie. We did not see Nessie.
No, but it is a beautiful area to go and check out.
Yep, absolutely stunning out there.
I would happily go and spend a lot more time.
Yep. So, let's see.
This is our last one, I think.
Yep. Last stop for the evening. Glamis. So, Glamis Castle in the Tayside region of Scotland.
You okay?
Yep.
Dinner talking?
No, the
eggnog talking.
Yeah.
So
while there was a hunting lodge on the site before the castle, we know that Glamis was founded by the Lyon family in 1372 when King Robert II granted Sir John Lyon the thainage of Glamis. The castle has enjoyed a relatively peaceful existence apart from it being occupied by Cromwell's troops in 1650. The tranquil existence only extends to the castle, as many who lived here were not so lucky. Over the centuries, Glamis has grown in size and importance, and the legends have grown with it. As historic as it is, Glamis is not just a museum. It remains the ancestral seat of the Earl of Strathmore and Kinghorn. Shakespeare made Macbeth Thane of Glamis and set the murder of King Duncan within the castle's gloomy walls. Although the slaying actually took place near Elgin. That said, Macbeth was a very real Scottish king who ruled from 1040 to 1057, but not much else from Shakespeare's famous play reflects reality.
Let me just pause there. Shakespeare wrote Macbeth to please James.
Yeah.
James's ancestor was Banquo, who in real life was not a good person. And Macbeth actually was a very good king. But you don't want to tick off the king who is your sponsor.
Yeah.
There's your history.
So, that was my next line.
I stole it.
I know you did. All right. So records aren't great from that era, but from what we do know about Macbeth, he was a fairly successful ruler. Ruling 1,000 years ago took a good bit of scheming and backstabbing. However, this King of Scots isn't remembered as a tyrannical, murdering leader. More importantly, Macbeth had nothing to do with Glamis Castle and certainly wasn't Thane of Glamis. Much of the castle was rebuilt in the 17th century when it acquired its French chateau look. In the early part of the 20th century, it was the childhood home of Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon, who would later become the Queen Mother.
Queen Elizabeth's mother.
Yeah. Elizabeth was a remarkable woman who never considered anything below her station and is still thought of highly in Scotland. When Glamis Castle was repurposed as a World War I hospital, the aristocratic teenager worked hard caring for the wounded soldiers inside. When she married the future King George VI, she succeeded in bringing a relatable feeling to the royal family. Her relationship with her Scottish roots remained strong throughout her entire life, with regular visits to Glamis Castle. She even gave birth to Princess Margaret here. Because the castle was rather isolated, many lords decided to live elsewhere. Glamis Castle was then looked after by an estate manager. Sir Walter Scott was one of them. He applied for the job in 1790. Scott thought the isolation of the castle would bring good to his writing. He didn't last too long, though. In an account which he published in 1830, he claimed, "As I heard door after door shut, I began to consider myself as too far away from the living and somewhat too near the dead." A fitting sentiment, as some consider Glamis Castle to be the most haunted castle in Scotland. At least 6 ghosts are known to wander its rooms and corridors. One of them haunts the atmospheric crypt, reached via a connecting door from the splendid dining room. It instantly transports visitors from the stately opulence of the Victorian era to the more austere days of the Middle Ages. There's a room called the Hangman's Chamber inside the castle. A butler once hanged himself there, and he still haunts this room. Faces appear at windows. There are cold spots, and a bent old lady who carries a bundle of cloth to the middle of the courtyard before disappearing has been seen as well. Banging and knocking noises are quite common. There's an oft-repeated quote from the 13th Earl of Strathmore, which has fueled speculation. "If you could even guess the nature of this castle's secret, you would get down on your knees and thank God it was not yours." The Biglione family secret is what is known as the Monster of Glamis. This monster was in fact a severely deformed child. Various researchers claim that this was Thomas Bowes Leon, a son of Thomas, Lord of Glamis, and his wife. They told the public the child was stillborn on October 21st, 1821, but there are reasons to believe the child didn't die. The child was born with a huge deformity. His chest was enormous. He was as hairy as a doormat, and his head ran straight onto his shoulders. The arms and legs were toy-like, if we may believe the claims of the very few who laid eyes on him. Only 3 people knew of the child's existence, and they had the heavy duty to take care of the child, whom they all came to refer to as the monster. Very unfortunate. Very sad.
It is. Very reflective of the time period.
Very reflective of the time period. I struggled in reading this story and in editing it. It's like, do we really want to keep repeating this reference to the monster? I don't want to, but it's the historic context.
It is.
So this is not our opinion on the matter. I can't say I'm certainly not a fan of the language they used, but this is what they did.
Yeah, this, as I said, it's reflective of the time period.
So, anyways, carrying on. So, of these confidants who were tasked with taking care of the monster, if one of these 3 confidants died, another was appointed. The monster was hidden away in his own private chambers deep within the castle. When the monster died, the lord bricked his chamber in so no one could ever discover the rooms. There was once a Lady Glamis who desperately wanted to find the monster's rooms. When the lord was away, she invited some friends over, and together they hung towels by each of the castle's windows. Once outside, they discovered that one window was missing a towel. When the lord came back unexpectedly, he was furious with his wife. She left the same night, never to return. It is said that the monster of Glamis still haunts the castle's battlements. On a related note, the secret of the monster was accidentally discovered by one of the maids. But instead of keeping the secret to herself, she went straight to the lord to confront him. Perhaps she even tried to blackmail him with the secret, and she ended up paying the ultimate price. The lord, who absolutely wanted the family's secret to be kept secret, ordered his men to silence her. Her tongue was to be removed so she couldn't speak no longer. The men caught the maid, cut out her tongue, but the girl managed to escape. She ran across the courtyard but was eventually recaptured and killed. Her ghost has been seen in the courtyard while blood is gushing from her mouth. The legends of Glamis don't end with the monster. As a matter of fact, the monster may not even be the most infamous legend from the castle's past. One night, several men were playing cards. As the hour was reaching midnight, people began to get uncomfortable and disappeared off to bed because of the Sabbath. It was a terrible sin to gamble on the Sabbath. But one man didn't care. Sometimes it's said to be Earl Bertie of Crawford, other times it's Alexander Leon, Lord of Glamis. Either way, in his drunken state, this fool roared that he didn't care what the others thought. He would play cards on the Sabbath, he would play until doomsday, he would even play with the devil himself.
And you just opened up a whole can of you-know-what.
Suddenly, a heavy knock came at the door. It was a tall, dark stranger seeking shelter and maybe even a wee game of cards. Common sense was out the window, and he was welcome to the table. Once midnight passed, now early Sunday morning, the stranger revealed himself as the devil, here to grant the man's wish. After a while, a great deal of swearing and shouting was heard coming from the room they were in. One of the servants took a peek through the keyhole to see what was happening and found himself blinded in one eye by a bright beam of light. It is rumored that the mysterious man was the devil himself, who took Earl Bertie's soul that night. However, history shows us the Earl died a mere few days later. The Earl now haunts the castle as a dark presence. He is known for waking up children in the middle of the night by leaning over their beds. There are several reports of guests waking to find him leaning over their beds, gazing at them with evil intent. For many years, the sounds of cursing and swearing were heard echoing from the room at night, and in an attempt to quell the disturbances, the chamber was bricked up. But the foul-mouthed phantom could not be confined, and his fearsome spectre is still said to roam the castle in the dead of night. Next, we have a more peaceful spirit, but her origin is certainly more tragic. The castle's peaceful chapel is the haunt of the Grey Lady, thought to be the ghost of Janet Douglas, wife of John, 6th Lord Glamis. King James V hated the Douglas clan on account of the fact that he had been completely dominated by his Douglas stepfather and manipulated by other members of the family. Following the death of her husband, Janet married Archibald Campbell of Skipness and brought him to live at Glamis. But James had been waging a ruthless vendetta against the Douglas clan. In what can only be described as an act of petulant spite, he turned his attention to the popular and beautiful Lady Campbell and arrested her on a trumped-up charge of witchcraft. On July 17, 1537, she was led from Edinburgh Castle and burned at the stake on Castle Hill. Her ghost has been seen many times in the chapel, kneeling in silent prayer, a shimmering, translucent figure who exudes an aura of peaceful tranquility and melts into nothingness after a few short moments. Today there is even a seat dedicated to her in the chapel, and no one in the family is allowed to sit here. Diving back into the grimmer tales of Glamis, some members of the Leon family were quite cruel. Generations ago, the Ogilvy family and the Lindsay family were engaged in a nasty feud. One night, a group of Ogilvys arrived at the castle, begging the Lord for safety from a group of pursuing Lindsays. The Lord led them inside and took them to a secret room where the Lindsays couldn't get to them. The Ogilvys were grateful until they discovered he had locked them in to starve. The Leons and the Lindsays were allies at the time. So when the leader of the Lindsays arrived at the castle, Lord Glamis showed him the key and told him not to worry about the Ogilvys anymore. A few weeks later, some servants heard strange noises coming from the dungeon. The Lord was away, so they set out to explore. When they opened the door to the dungeon, they were intensely shocked to find a whole pile of rotting corpses. One man was still alive, although it was barely. He had survived by eating the flesh of his dead relatives. Today, the room is thought to exude a strong feeling of uneasiness. Ending it on a bright note.
Happy thoughts for tonight's dream.
I did not even consider thinking about that when I edited that. I usually try to end on a more upbeat note.
We don't really have too many upbeat notes on this one.
No, this is Scotland, yes.
Scotland has some very dark history.
Absolutely gorgeous country with some of the darkest history around.
Yes.
But let's see. I think were there questions there? Yes, Loch Ness is absolutely stunning, Alex. Absolutely stunning. So Patrick, in Macbeth, there is even a king mentioned who was too busy healing everyone to do anything else. This was a nod to King James to show that not all kings are bad. You have to keep your sponsor happy.
Yeah. Happy sponsor, happy life. Especially when your sponsor is a king or queen.
Yeah. And hi, Dana. Glad you could tune in here for a few minutes. And if you are just tuning in, you can always go back and once we wrap up here, you can watch this from the beginning. Or you can go and catch this on our YouTube channel, which I should have this posted to within the hour.
Yep. Just so y'all know, next show is not till November 4th, and that's going to be Haunted New Jersey.
So bringing it back to this side of the,
The world.
this side of the Atlantic.
And then on the 18th, it will be Haunted North Carolina.
Yeah.
So that's where we are with that. I still have to finish getting those scripts together at some point.
Haunted New Jersey, not the Haunted Isle of Jersey.
No.
No. So bringing it back closer to home, but not to home because we're not in New Jersey.
Excuse me. Back to the States.
Back to the States.
Literally. Oh, hello. That was my foot that just popped up over there. Sorry about that foot flex there.
Beth is going to fall asleep right here.
The cat is helping so much on this. And I've only been up since 5:30 this morning.
You keep mentioning that.
I'm tired. I get to sleep in tomorrow. I haven't slept in a few days.
You do get to sleep in. I do not. I mean, well, maybe I got an extra half an hour or something, but
I'm going to sleep in.
I know you will. Until you don't.
Yeah, and then I'll make you omelet.
Knowing you're saying you're going to sleep in, and then you'll probably crawl out of bed at 7 o'clock.
Hey, 7 o'clock is sleeping in for me.
Yeah, except it's not.
It is. It's an hour and a half later than what I normally sleep in when I'm working.
Nah. But when I sleep in...
You sleep in half the day.
No, not half the day. It's hours later. Hours later than I usually get up.
10 o'clock, 11.
I have not been...
10 o'clock is the latest you've
yes.
ever slept in.
Usually...
But you're also normally coming to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, usually it's 8 or 9 o'clock is when I sleep until. Anyways.
We digress.
You don't need to know about our sleeping habits or our lack of sleeping habits. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Patrick, Alex, Dana.
Anybody else who joins in later?
Yeah. Who else do we have here? We had somebody else say hi.
Not your mom tonight.
No.
It would have been too late.
It is too late. Somebody else. I lost it.
Oh.
Jacinda. Jacinda said hi. Sorry about that. But yes. Yeah, thank you for tuning in. And
we'll see you on the 4th, if not before.
Yeah, hopefully you can come on out and join us on a tour before that. Whether you're on foot or whether you join me on a Segway or you join Lee on one of the haunted tuk-tuks or you come see us up at Hanover Tavern.
Yep.
So for the Ghosts Walk at Night, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on through the back half of October here. But no matter what you do, hope you enjoy the rest of the spooky season, and thank you for spending a little bit of it with us here, at least online. And yeah, if we do not talk to you before then, you'll have a happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Bye, y'all.
Have a good night.